You live in a gated community.
It's called a gated community.
In the gay community.
I just want us to have an open conversation, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, anybody. I want this to be a safe space for everyone.
Racism is alive and well in the gay community.
The gay community.
The gay community.
Gay community as us as a trans community.
Who is having that conversation?
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Gated Community Podcast. So on this episode, I had the pleasure of having a conversation with another creative who is also a part of the Black gay community. His name is Dominick Bailey. He's a pharmacist who moonlights as an actor / producer with an amazing web series on the way by the name of Black Judies. Sounds fun. Make sure you keep an eye out for that. Dominick is also an amazing dancer, performing in shows like The Nutcracker, produced and directed by Debbie Allen. In this episode, you'll hear dialogue that showcases a range of topics delineating what it means to us to be Black and gay and what it looks like to navigate through life as such. You can catch Dominick on Instagram at DomBomb11. I'll spell that out for you. It's D as in dog, O, M as in Mary, B as in bottom, O, M, B as in bottom, 1. And if you're into ballroom culture, follow his life in the ballroom at Cyrus_V33. I also spelled that at C as in cat, YRUS_V as in vagina 33. So the episode opens with me clarifying the misconception and often misused phrase of gay lifestyle. People who don't know tend to assume characters of assumption speak in the boldest font because they're subconsciously trying to convince themselves that they're right while simultaneously attempting to do the same to others. This is when assuming leads to confusion. Confusion is a branch on the tree of ignorance. With that being said, for those who think they know what a lifestyle is, allow me to educate you on what it's not. Homosexuality. A lifestyle is nothing more than a way of living. Homosexuality is a way of being. The rich and famous live a lavish lifestyle. To eat well-balanced meals and exercise regularly is to live a healthy lifestyle. Members of the cartel and gangs live dangerous lifestyles. To not think before you speak and repeat what sounds good just because someone else says it is to live an ignorant lifestyle. Again, homosexuality is not a way of living. It's a way of being, without subject to change, whereas the aforementioned can change with control or lack thereof. So let's get into it.
Yes. Okay. So cool. And I also have a blog on Instagram that's dedicated to the gay lifestyle. I hate saying that word because people say gay and they say lifestyle. I'm like, gay. Being gay is not a lifestyle. You know what I mean? Being gay is not a lifestyle. But I have a blog that's dedicated to both gay and straight, just like ways of living on Instagram, also called The Gated Community. So
excellent. So it sounds like you were definitely giving voice to what it is to be gay, and also we're both Black. What it is to be the gay Black experience in the U.S.
Yes.
So it's interesting to say that because when you said you kind of have issue with the gay lifestyle, I think that is something that's really, it's interesting because I feel like when you do describe lifestyles, those usually come with a choice, and being gay clearly is not. It's not a choice. Same thing.
I think non-homosexuals have a tendency to believe and throw around the word gay as if it's some type of personality trait that exudes femininity and any type of condemnation that they can associate with it. That's the opposite of who they are and what they believe.
And I think they associate ballroom scenes, ballroom culture,
yes,
and things like that.
Yeah.
right. To a gay lifestyle. It's not a lifestyle. It's my life.
That is true. And I think, and that's important to recognize too, because I feel like that is, I officially came out at 22. That's when I told my parents. And since then, I felt like my life has been centered around, before then it was always hiding. It was always how can I what can I do to make sure nobody knows, and hiding in the shadows and kind of doing X, Y, and Z. But then when I finally came out, I was like, okay, now I can, the things that I wanted to do that I thought were too gay. And I'll say that in terms of fitting into the gay lifestyle, I'm now able to do because it came out. So it's interesting that, we kind of, we do think about lifestyle as far as like choices, but then we also think about, like kind of a state of being, and then being gay, like I feel like leads to a life that is, at least in my eyes, very free and very open.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously you're going to feel like that freedom and that feeling of like emancipation once you like actually come out of the closet. I guess it's different for me because I've been out since like middle school, maybe. Like my parents sat me down one day, like we all went to dinner and we had the conversation about me being gay. And fortunately, it was a positive outcome. And, they were supportive. My whole family, my extended family was supportive. And so my life growing up was different, like a lot different than a lot of gays that I know. Different in better ways. So I don't really, I can understand like how people like you might say that it's freeing to come out like after like a certain age, but I guess I can't really identify with that because I've always been Corey. You know what I mean? Like this has always been me. So it's never been a period where I felt like, even like in the work environment, like when I've had different jobs, I've never felt like it's something that I feel like I need to hide. I guess I say that to say that people, I think it would be so much easier if people just lived in their truth as soon as possible versus waiting for, the approval of other people, be it strangers, be it relatives, be it coworkers, be it whoever, because like nothing's going to change about you. And the only thing that should change is the opinion of others. And they should, learn to accept who you are. Everybody's not going to like everybody. Everybody's not going to accept everybody. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. But I think that, it's like when it comes to coming out of the closet, listen, I don't do well with like DL people, DL guys, dating them, been there, done that, bisexual.
We've been there, done that. Look, been there, done that. No thanks. Return to sender. No.
Return to sender.
No thanks.
Period.
Period.
That's it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. That's it. Like,
right. And honestly, for me, like it's triggering. Like I like the whole, like it's a good conversation to have, like the DL, like first off, that's so like 1999. But like that, I don't judge it because I've been there, but like that is triggering for me because that was just such a point in my life when I was just so like unhappy. Like I was just so not comfortable with who I was at that point.
I mean, you kind of just considered yourself to be DL?
Yeah, because for the longest I actually considered myself, this is so funny. I was straight with a gay fetish. That was that's how I classified myself.
That's interesting.
That's how I classified.
How does that even work? Like, what? Because
of the dichotomy between both, because it's interesting. Actually, we're both from the South. So we're both from we understand.
From the same state.
Like
we grew up miles apart.
And
South Carolina.
And that's something we should probably touch on too, as well. I'm going to table that for right after this, because that's something I think is very important too. But that was the dichotomy between it just wasn't accepted. So I needed to be, in order to feel safe and supported, I need to be in a place, for me, this is for Dominick, I need to be in a place where I could get that support, but still express kind of like who I was, which is why I coined myself straight with the gay fetish until college. And then college completely.
Yeah, and it's also, I guess it's also important to not be so dismissive of people who are living a life where they're not really being 100% authentic to themselves.
Yeah.
Because I guess they feel like if they kind of emancipate themselves from their family, then they won't get that support and they'll be exiled. And so, I can't really dismiss that. Like I said, I can't identify with it because I've always had support from day one from my family. Yeah. But I've heard so many stories and I have so many friends in Atlanta who have been I can't come out because my mom, my dad, they won't. It'll be over for me. They still kind of support me financially and they look after me. So I can't really, which I think is really fucked up because I think if parents, not putting it all on the parents, but I think if you're going to become parents, then you should be more open-minded and have conversations with your kids. And to where, for instance, if a dad has a son and he's like, oh, so you don't have a girlfriend yet? Like, is there anybody that you got a little girl in your class that you like? It? Instead of saying girl, like say something, keep it open. Is there someone in your class that you like? It could be a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
That way, you would make it more open and you would make it like a better, less tension for you and your child to have conversations about, what they really like because you have an open mind and you're more comfortable with it. But if you put limitations on that and stick to gender, then, it's a boy and he really likes a boy and you're like throwing this girl at him, then he's going to be like, I can never talk to my dad about, being who I really am because they're expecting me to be a certain way because of the way that they are.
Boom.
So I think that parents should just kind of learn more about having conversations with their kids in regards to sexuality and being being open with gender and gender roles. But that's, I think when we grew up, our generation, how we grew up, that was not a thing.
Right. Which is exactly what I was about to go into because it was, my father was a military guy. And so he was very, everything that stereotypically that you think about someone in the military is kind of what he tried to exude at home. So strict and disciplined, regimented. And it just wasn't really any room for things outside of, and this is just my personal experience. There was no room. There was no room for anything outside of what he expected. There was just no room for it. Like if the expectations weren't met, it was just kind of like you weren't recognized, Right. And I think that is something. And it's interesting because we do have different coming out stories. I came out at 22, you came out in middle school. So I'm just going to say 12, adolescent age. And so our experiences were very different in that regard. Let me ask this. Did you guys go to church a lot? Were you guys pretty religious growing up?
Yeah.
How do you think that kind of what was that experience like for you in terms of being gay? And Black? What was that experience like being in the church?
Honestly, I knew in my mind and I knew myself well enough to know that I was interested in guys, from a very young age. So me going to church and growing up in a household where religion was really kind of like the theme of life was no different than me going to the grocery store and picking up some bananas. It was really I'm just at church because I think I was heavy into church because I would sing a lot. I used to sing a lot in church.
Damn.
And I was always embraced and, there was never a point in my life where I felt like I can't go to church because I'm gay. Mm-hmm. I just feel like from being a child up until now, I was embraced more than I was shunned away. And church was one of those places I just happened to be embraced. I didn't feel uncomfortable. I didn't feel I can queen out.
Yeah.
And being a kid, it was no different. I was kind of a feminine kid. You know what I mean? And that didn't change when I went through, when I walked through the church doors. I was just always the same. So I understand that a lot of people who are religious feel they kind of separate themselves from, who they really are or they struggle with their sexuality because they feel like God doesn't want them to be a certain way. And
which was my struggle. So for me, I again grew up in the South and the Bible Belt. So we went to church every Sunday and it was just a thing for me. But I think, because I wasn't comfortable kind of in myself, I saw a lot of the reason I went to church and the reason why I clung to church and the reason why I clung to religion, because I was super involved. I was in I was on the usher board, I was in the choir, I would go to the conferences. And what's so funny is at all these conferences, I would meet all these boys. I met a lot of my gay friends. I shouldn't say a lot, but some of my gay friends now I met through church, and we're all out of the closet. So it's really interesting because I felt even though I clung to church as a mechanism to kind of hide, because I was like, oh, you know, if I'm religious, then God will make me straight, and like I won't have to like deal with this. And that was kind of the rationale that I took.
So let me just ask you something really quickly. Like, when you had those thoughts, did it never occur to you that God had already made you gay? So for you to want and pray to God to make you straight would be something that was like unnatural?
No, I mean, now having with the maturity and the age and the wisdom that I have now, I recognize that is, of course, true. But when I was a teenager, no, I didn't. I mean, I did not. I didn't want to be gay. Like, I really did not. Like, I mean, of course, I had these feelings and I had these desires and I had these urges. But like, I tried really hard to like not do it.
And that was because of all of the connotations that came with it, and the way that, you know, you kind of grew up in like a militant household. And
yeah, I think it also. Yeah, I mean, I think it has to do with
you had like layers of things.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
You had like layers of things that was kind of hindering you from like.
Yeah, I think it started. I think for me, it started at the home level, and like both my parents not really being supportive of any type of femininity or any type of like. There was just no recognition of it, because it was interesting because like I did in terms of like if we're gonna classify things. I mean, I did gymnastics, which, you know, people can, I guess, socially, you know. At that time, say was like a gay thing to do.
Associate that with
homosexuality. I did gymnastics. I danced all the time. I was always doing like Michael Jackson video routines and shit. Most of my friends were women. I played with, I didn't really play with dolls that much. Oh, but I remember when I used to play video games, I would always pick the female characters.
Me too.
Chung Lee was my bitch. Chung Lee was my bitch.
Listen, I will go straight to the girl.
Straight to the give me Cammy, give me Chung Lee, give me Sailor Moon, give me all. So I had all these tendencies. I mean, I was clear. I mean, like clearly, I don't know, in my mind, clearly gay. And then like, it was just, but there was an attempt from both of my parents to really kind of steer me away from that. So I think that is where I kind of got into this battle within myself of like, okay, I'm one way, but my parents expect me to be another way. So like, that's where, like, how can I please them? Because that's where, that's kind of where I was up until I kind of came out the closet, and then some other things happened. But,
that's what children aim to. They aim to please their parents.
I know.
So that's understandable.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think it really affected my relationships. I'm talking friendships, romantic, anything. Like, it really affected all of my relationships up until I was able to come to terms with kind of that, my childhood, because I was constantly like seeking validation in other men and kind of like, really not inviting people into my life that were accepting of my lifestyle. Here we go, gay lifestyle of me. We'll say me.
Of who you were,
of me, yeah. Right? Not lifestyle of me, right? Of me, of Dominick, and it really affected me. And I think I did not really have healthy friendships or relationships until, for me, it was therapy. When I started going to therapy at 27, and I really started coming to terms with like what happened and where my internalized homophobia, or whatever you want to call it, kind of came up.
I'm not going to say my life was perfect, because it was by no means, it was nowhere near perfect. I was gay. Like, I was so much myself to the point to where I would get bullied. But that wouldn't, like, just because I would get like in fights and get bullied in school, you would think that would kind of alter, maybe kind of shift my mindset to say, let me just be more like what's accepted, so that, you know, I won't get bullied or I won't get in fights or whatever the case may be. No, that wasn't me. Like, I'm going to be gayer the next day. What's tea? You know what I mean? Like, you want to fight, like,
what's gay?
I'm not doing all of that with y'all. Like, it was, but it was a lot, like, it leads me to kind of question why straight people are so adamant about homosexuality being a choice. Like if you knew the shit that we went through as kids,
right?
Even masculine gay guys, like if you knew what the shit that we went through, nobody would believe that it was a choice. And I think that in order to believe that it wasn't, you have to actually be homosexual.
100%. And I mean, that's so funny you say that, because that is exactly how when I came out of the closet, that's exactly what I told my parents. I said, do you think this is a choice? Like, do you think I'm choosing to live a lifestyle that's kind of against the norm? Like, I mean, we're already Black, so we're already minorities, and that comes with its own set of issues.
I never thought like that.
Let's talk about that. So let's actually talk about that then. Okay, so let's talk about that, because I'm under the guise of like, when you are Black and gay, you're Black, so that's a box, right? So that's already like, being Black is already like a certain, comes with to be PC, comes with its own set of challenges and opportunities. Shit is hard. I mean, shit is literally systematically in place to keep us down. I really feel like there are systems in place in America to make sure that we don't prosper. So there's that. So it's already hard enough being that. But then to add on, okay, not only are you Black, but now you're gay. Like, that was just kind of like that's like double homicide. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
I just never, because like growing up, my mom was always like, you can be whatever you want to be. Like you can be whoever you want to be, whatever you want to be. So I wasn't raised with limitations. I wasn't raised to believe that Black people were lesser than, or there were like a tier under anyone else. And all the same with being gay. Like I was never told or taught that, being gay was only going to get you so far, and you were going to get held back from things in life because you are Black and then gay. And I don't think I've ever really experienced oppression until it came to my last job. Tell me about that. Tell me a little bit more about that. I was an accountant for a tech company in Glendale. Tech software company, and it was I would be passed over for raises. I would be told that I'm like, you're gonna get this, you're gonna get like an X amount for your raise, you're gonna get like a title change, just all these things that I was promised. And when there was this white guy who came in, I think he started maybe like a few months after I did, and he was on my team. He was younger. He was like, he's fresh out of college, and he came on my team maybe like a year after he started. He got that raise and he got that title change that was promised to me. And it wasn't like, I'm not taking anything from, the work that because he did deserve it, but so did I. Right. And I had seniority. Like, there were so many things that kind of told my boss that it should have gone to me. I'm pretty sure it was a white Black thing, not a gay straight thing, but a white Black thing. And when I kind of like realized it, and I talked to my therapist about it, I just felt really strongly that was why that happened to me, because I'm Black. Yeah, I mean, I have countless stories. Like, I mean, again, we both grew up in the South, and I actually kind of want to talk about that too. Like, did you ever? Let me ask you this: so your circle growing up, or your circle kind of like, let's talk about post high school. What was your circle like? Like, what was your circle of friends like? What was the demographic makeup? We're very, 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 very close. It was about 5 or 6 of us. And they were all Black.
And gay as well, right?
And gay. I think there's only one person besides myself that kind of grew up with not really hurting for anything. Like, if we needed something monetarily, like, it was there for us. But my other friends, it really wasn't. They struggled. I think their families struggled with money. I think their families struggled with accepting them for who they are, their sexuality. So a lot of them would turn to my mother and like have conversations with her and call her, like, to talk about things that they felt like they couldn't speak about with their own family. And I mean, I was okay with that, because we were so close. And then we were all living in Atlanta, like in our 20s.
Yeah.
Like it was like one of the best periods of my life.
Excellent. Okay, so tell me more about that. I mean, Atlanta is, well, first off, I mean, Atlanta is the Black gay mecca.
I'm telling you, I would be in my car at a red light.
Like,
would pull up and be like, roll down your window, and you got a boyfriend, what's your number?
right.
Like, has happened to me so many times. So I felt really comfortable just being there.
Yeah. And I think, and I think that really influences also kind of your outlook, because if you're in, like for me, so I did not grow up in Atlanta. I've never lived in Atlanta. I've only visited Atlanta, and I love Atlanta because I always feel very affirmed in Atlanta because it's a lot of Black gay men.
Right.
Same thing with DC. I used to live in DC, and I felt like DC was very similar. But I will say that I showed up in spaces where there weren't many people who looked like me. Like when I went to college, I didn't come out to the end of college. So in college, I was kind of ducking in the shadows and kind of not really. I was kind of gay. Like I was DL, kind of floating around, doing my thing, whatever. But that's college, and it was a PWI. So there was always.
How did that work? Because navigating through college, because you would think that in college, because my first year of college, it was no, I just felt like nobody gave a fuck about.
And you enjoyed that.
Who you were. You didn't have that scrutiny that you might in high school. So how was that? I guess because you were coming from you were already in that kind of DL phase. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why you just kind of continue with that. But you didn't feel like it was okay for you to be more out in college?
I didn't. And the reason why was you get to college at 18. And so the first semester of college, I was like, okay, I'm about to come out. I was like, I'm about to come out. I'm about to I wanted to explore, because I was saying, I was like, this is college. I can explore whatever I want. I'm boys, men.
Right. Where they at?
Where the hood niggas at? And, but I joined a fraternity. After my second year, and it was and that's what I was saying. I kind of recreated relationships that were very similar to my dad. And at that time, the fraternity is a bunch of straight male, bunch of egos and very
allegedly straight.
Allegedly, that's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole other conversation. That's in the book. Look, that's in the book that's coming next year.
Right.
But yeah, it was just, so I joined a fraternity and I really leaned into that. And that kind of just fed I was in a very homophobic environment, and I didn't feel supported again. So it just kind of fed into the DL lifestyle that I'd already done. So I think that was my personal block. And so that's also why, it wasn't until in terms of coming out of the closet, I was also I need to be self-sufficient, because if I come out, I'm pretty sure my parents are going to cut me off and it's going to be a wrap. So that's kind of what was the impetus for me to go to pharmacy school as well. Because I was just kind of I need to make sure that I am in a place financially secure, so that when I do to come out and this is a thing. So that was kind of my experience. So then it wasn't until grad school that I really enjoyed the freedom of kind of being out and I was in Baltimore and DC at the time, between both cities. So I was kind of enjoy the freedom, especially in DC, enjoy the freedom of what it is to be an out, socially, what it is to be out and gay. But, it's interesting. I still felt the implications between both being Black and then both being gay, because I would go to these spaces where, as far as boys who were out, I felt like a lot of those spaces were predominantly white.
To your point, I will say that there was a strong dichotomy in Atlanta between white gay bars and Black gay bars.
And I think, let's talk about that. And you want to talk about Black and gay, that is Black. That is, let's talk about that. You know what I'm saying?
You never really saw, it wasn't until recently where I started seeing Blacks integrate into white spaces, but you never saw, and they could be less than a mile apart. Walking distance from each other, you would never see white gays in the Black gay bars or Black gays in the white gay bars, which was something that I just kind of always, it never really sat well with me. I'm just why is it that we have to segregate still to have a good time? I think that integration is really important, because you have an opportunity to learn a lot about the opposite race. You know what I mean? You get a chance to learn about what white guys are what dating white guys might look like. You get a chance to kind of have them learn who you are as a Black person. But for so long, it was just like, it was Black and there was white. Like, oh, I don't know, girl, that's the white club. We ain't going over there.
Right. And I mean, but like, I think we have to also touch on that. And like, I felt like that was race dynamics 101. I mean, if you take apart, like if you take out the gay, and you put, in the South, Black versus everybody else. So Black was white. Like there was always a sense of, at least for me growing up, there was always a sense of like, you don't belong here. Or you're in a white homogenous space, so you need to be prepared to fight and you need to be prepared to protect yourself because like it could potentially turn to something really, really hostile really quick.
Well, see, I never really got that feeling that it was gonna like turn into something violent, but I did always feel like if I were to go into like say Blake's, like now everybody goes to Blake's, but once upon a time,
let's explain what Blake's is. Blake's is a gay club in Atlanta. It's a
gay club in Midtown Atlanta, and it is it's where like predominantly the white gays go.
Yes.
Gays and lesbians. But it was, once upon a time, it was like predominantly like everybody, we would just walk past it just to get to our bar. Mm-hmm. And it almost took me back to like what I learned about growing up and living like during the civil rights movement, where you would like pass white spaces to get to Black spaces. You know what I mean? And it kind of bothered me because I'm like, why? I wonder why. But like none of my friends in my friend circle, like they were never like, oh, we should go. Like, let's just go in here and try it. But
So when you did try it, what was that like?
It was what I thought it would be. It made me feel very uncomfortable. It was almost like people were looking at you like, what are they doing in here?
Right. And I think exactly. And that's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. So there's a bar in, so now we're talking about bars in terms of like, because I think back in the day, oh my God, we're aging ourselves. But back in my lower 20s, we didn't have social media. So like we had to go, our social media was a gay bar. Like we had to go out to these spaces and to meet other gay men. Like
those were like the best times of life.
Yeah, because you had to actually go out to meet people because I enjoyed that. And talk to people, right? Exactly. But I'm saying, so we didn't have that luxury. So like going into spaces like Blake's, and there was another space in Baltimore called Grand Central, and there's another space in DC called Town Dance Boutique, and they're all very similar to Blake's, predominantly white visited and like predominantly I would just say white affirming. So there was all those things going on. Like I would walk into those spaces, and in the beginning, I felt very uncomfortable, and I felt very like people were just kind of looking at me like, oh, what's going on here? And, and I really fought, Dominick, like I really fought hard to show up in those spaces because I felt like I needed to be there because I was like, you know what? I need to make y'all motherfuckers uncomfortable. Like I'm uncomfortable, so y'all finna be uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? So that was like my whole plight. And that was my plight for a while. But then contrastly, when I did show up in predominantly Black clubs, it was just like the time of my life. I mean, it was just like the dancing, the camaraderie, like it was just a level of comfort that was there that just wasn't present in like predominantly white gay spaces.
Well, I think that would be obvious because you see people who look like you and they also share your culture. Yeah. So I think that, that kind of makes sense. Like now it's like, to be like 100% honest, some of my Black friends are just like, I don't like white people for X amount of reasons. I'm not one of those people. Yeah. But I guess I like the older that I get, the more I'm learning to understand why they feel that way.
It's a total, I think it is a response to the racism that they felt. I think it's a response I think it's a response to that versus like I think if whomever you're talking about didn't feel as if they were subjugated, they would not have that opinion. I think it's a protection mechanism. I think it's a defense mechanism.
I think I think they might feel like that based on certain experiences that they've had or interactions that they've had with white people. And like my stance was always, you can't, like, that's the same thing that they do to us. White people do to Black people. You can't like hate an entire race based on 1, 2, or a handful of experiences, bad experiences that you've had.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode.
It's called a gated
I'm
community.
in a gated community. All the gays are
You
lying.
live in a gated community.
African people are not pro-homosexual.
Who is having that conversation?